Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. On Friday, CIG did a Star Citizen Live on Basebuilding and Crafting, and while it said a lot, it also raised a lot more questions. So I'm going to present this kind of in the form of a react video, but having taken time to think about it and sleep on it. I know that Jared mentioned several times that this was just the first of no doubt many further discussions about this topic. So I guess this might be considered my setting out some of the things that those future discussions will need to clarify. The subject of base building and also the subject of shards and server meshing have been long-standing concerns that I've been raising on this channel. So I was pleased when they said the most common question that they had asked was about sharding, and maybe even felt that I contributed it to being the most common question that was asked. So let's get to what they answered.
The big question I saw probably most commonly after CitizenCon was, how does all this work with shards?
Yep, this is a big one indeed. I think I saw this asked 20 odd times. So the plan is that every base, every plot of land, every extraction pot will be visible across all the shards within a region.
Those last three words are really significant, and it wasn't a quirk. They repeated them.
Across all the shards within a region, so...
Until this time, server meshing was described as there being two existences of the entity graph database. The first was the global entity graph database, which was what populated new shards when they were created, and for which your characters and personal inventories were persisted to when they logged out, which allowed you to log back into any other shard in a region or any other region and still have the stuff that was in your inventories and hangar move with you. But now, he is describing some sort of regional level of the entity graph database where base layouts get persisted to. At what frequency was unsaid, but not persisted all the way to the global entity graph database. But this means a couple things. First of all, if I log out on the U.S. region and then log into the EU region because some friends in Manchester want me to join them for something, my base is not only gone, but apparently somebody else may have built their base in the exact same spot. If I wanted to use some of the things and ships that I had stored in my personal base, do they even exist here at all in the EU server? If so, where? This can really represent a problem for somebody trying to create and manage an international organization spanning more than one region. They have to build their base all over again in each region, and the efforts in one region, for example, to put things in the organizational storage in one base, cannot be retrieved and utilized in another region because literally that storage does not exist in the other region. Also, this officially kills any hope of there ever being one global shard, because once there is a regional level of persistence, regions will never be able to be merged, because not just overlapping bases, but also separate resources. If I build a base in one region on a copper deposit, and you build another base on the same copper deposit, they have to be separate resources pools at the same regional level, or you would be drinking the other people's milkshakes.
My straw reaches across the room and starts to drink your milkshake. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up!
So I'm just recommending this. CIG, whatever you think you are gaining from having the regional level of persistence, it isn't worth the problems you are creating. Stick with the two tiers, shard entity graph and global entity graph. Yes, that means that when I build a building in existence, and that building will need to be replicated to the global database and from the global database to other shards, but that can be done as a background priority.
Raiding and attacking a base, this can only occur on a single shard.
This very much reflects my previous suggestion of having one active state on one shard and the remaining shards be in a mothballed state. Now I'm going to come up with a new term. This is what I call the Highlander rule.
There can be only one.
In other words, when you build a base, you get the ability to use its extractors on one shard, and you have to defend it on that same one shard. Now, an important unanswered question is that if I have my personal hangar at an org base, can I access my personal hangar inventory at that org base items without activating the whole base? Because if there's only one activated base and all the others are mothballed, what happens if two different org members, each on different shards, want to get their personal inventory and hangar from their org base at the same time?
And which shard that is dynamic based on the rule set. The easiest rule is always, is the owner online? Then the raid can only occur on that owner's shard.
Stop trying to think that you can create some sort of algorithm to make a decision about whether a base on a shard should be activated, because it will often choose wrong, and then you, through your rule set, you will have to own the decision being wrong. Because sure, I may be on one shard, but if I'm on the opposite side of the verse, I might as well be offline in terms of my ability to defend it. Let the individuals decide. Or for org bases, members with high enough rights to make the decision to bring a base from mothballed to active or from active back to mothball. Sure, they might just as often make a bad decision, but then they own the bad decision, not you. Of course, there should be considerable shutdown timers so that you can't essentially combat log out of an entire base, but it does put a maximum time limit on any single raid. You can't win simply through exhaustion.
And I rock up with a gun and I shoot the base, it'll prompt me, you'll have to change shard in order to attack this base.
However, this does mean we have to have a way of being logged into not just a specific region, but also a specific shard, which we do not have a way of doing now. There is no way to go to the shard where the base is active.
Yeah, in those places.
Yeah, but people can also still use it, so the shops will still be functioning, that kind of thing. It's just...
But that means that there's going to need to be some way of coordinating inventories across shards, or you would have essentially item duplication exploits. This is why I included, when I suggested that the active versus mothballed idea, that I said that only item kiosks were active on mothballed shards and not items that the users had placed on shelves in the physical stores. Because if items placed or removed on physical store shelves replicated across inactive shards, then on those shards you'd see items suddenly popping in and popping out of existence and presume it was bugs.
It would be wise to occasionally take your valuables out of the lawless area and haul them back to a more safer spot like Terra or Stanson, but if you find yourself open like that, you can be raided.
Now, one thing that was clear here and elsewhere is that we're going to, for industrial-focused organizations, see a two-tiered setup of bases: the headquarters locations and mining bases. The former will be in protected locations because so much has been invested in them, and the latter will be set up on opportunistically in ad hoc locations and dropped probably just as quickly. Most of our actual base raids will be smash and grab operations at the resource locations. And most of those will be successful because the resource bases are going to be expendable. It's not really going to be worth the expense or trouble defending them because you can always create a new one. When we do see hostile activities at those big industrial bases, they will likely begin with blockades and may very well never grow beyond being blockades. Those big industrial facilities from organizations will be known places where supply ships will be bringing in valuable raw materials and taking out valuable finished products. Sure, the base might have a nearly invulnerable shield, but the incoming and outgoing ships certainly will not. And blockade forming and blockade running, well, sounds fun too.
Short answer, yes. So they will respawn, but it is very unlikely that they will respawn on the land plot that you already have.
The way I read this is that when we draw down one resource deposit, a new resource deposit is created somewhere else on the planet randomly. So the chance of it being recreated underneath your existing mining machine is essentially nil. But for that to work, the mining resources must be global. You can't deplete your resources on shard 10 and then be able to deplete it again on shard 20, 30, etc.
Drainage, Eli, you boy.
Even region hopping shouldn't let you double mine a vein. So those resource deposits have to be global. Another reason to have base replication be global and not regional.
In the disassembling process, you will not get one-to-one what you invested. There is a loss of material in there.
Now, not having the buildings give back 100% of the resources put into them makes for another reason why you need to have the ability to create a master plan and then build to that master plan. Because without that feature, you're going to have a lot of cases where you place a building and then a few minutes realize that you wanted to place that building in a slightly different location and then to have everything fit. But if there's no undo key, and instead it's going to take time and cost to undo that minor mistake, the placement then is a real pain.
Titanium rock, thank you.
Yeah.
So the titanium rock, and because what you're looking for is a better quality there, right? So you will still look for like the titanium rock that basically fits, has the perfect quality, but you don't have to look for a rock that contains titanium anymore.
So what I am getting from this is that deposits which contain not just the quantity of an element, but also the quality of the material. And here is where I think they have a chance to make things more realistic and also more interesting. When it comes to minerals, diamonds, corundum, quartz, etc., indeed there is a significant difference in the quality of what you can find because whatever impurities or such was set when that mineral was formed. But when it comes to elements, such as copper, iron, gold, whatever, there is no difference in quality. The gold atom is the gold atom. And the difference is a difference in purity. And purity is obtained through refining. So I would suggest this. Anything that appears in the periodic table elements will have its quality set by using more expensive and lengthy refining with lower yields. Everything else is either synthetic, in which case quality levels are set by the length and expense of the process, or minerals, where the quality is set by the deposit. On the other hand, I do like the idea that we can set what we are looking for, say diamond, and then we get fewer pings, but the surprise from examining up close will be the quality and quantity and not simply what among the whole range of possibilities it actually turned out to be.
Do we want to expand the current high-tech set with new functionality, or do we want to start building a new set with a new aesthetic?
Now, if they eventually do want to expand the high-tech aesthetic and have, let's say, a pyro aesthetic, that would be cool. But if they do, there should be a way to encourage an appropriate aesthetic for the location. And the most realistic way is through the maintenance cost. It should cost a lot less to maintain a low-tech aesthetic in a place like pyro, and a lot more to maintain a low-tech aesthetic in a place like Stanton or Terra. Now, the reason why it costs more to maintain the high-tech aesthetic in pyro might be easy to understand. Parts are harder to order, expensive to get, and have a long lead time. In addition, the knowledge of how to diagnose problems and install components might be rare. Repairing a pyro-style outpost might require blacksmithing, welding, hand sewing, masonry, carpentry, etc. How common do you think those skills are on Microtech? I'm reminded how in the Cold War era, U.S. and Russian foreign aid agencies would see countries where farmers were still plowing fields using oxen and imagined how much we could reduce hunger by improving their agriculture. So they sent tractors. And a short while later, they would come back and find that the tractors were being pulled by oxen because they'd broke and nobody could fix them.
We're made beautiful art for it now.
You don't need to give people ideas. I already know what the first base built is going to look like, and I can't say it.
I am sure
It's called-
it will be the most magnificent base ever built. I have high trust in the community.
And in case anybody's new to video games, the acronym is called TTP. And we'll see how long that is.
And if you don't want it to become a TTP game, the best thing you can do is to have the ability to create that master plan and build to the master plan. Because if your org has that person that has the ability to design and create an entire base plan, they're going to put more into it than just creating a big schlong. So again, this is a very important feature that I cannot emphasize enough. You have to be able to create a master plan and then build to the master plan. And you'll have to reserve spaces in this persistent hologram for the entire master plan.
Those decisions don't happen in a vacuum. They have to be accounted for. Also, the potential upgrade path that is coming with crafting and stuff like this. And if a ship is in a certain way where you're like, well, I'm not really a fan of it in its base configuration, but through time and effort on the player's behalf, maybe you can take a ship that you weren't totally happy with and now make it to something that becomes your daily driver. Yeah,
this calls back to the heavy balancing effort that Torsten was talking about earlier, that one of the big challenges is going to be very carefully balancing all of the different possibilities that you'll have access to with crafting. Because instead of just one ship has these values for these thrusters, the ship hull can change, and the thrusters can change, multiple tiers of them, quality, scaling, lots of potential for variation. So we will be paying very close attention to this.
You're just creating a whole lot of work for Rich Towler and his team, aren't you?
Now, I know that people building crafting want to make crafting really important, but don't. The important thing is that whatever you create with upgrading your ship should be a small benefit. Not only does that present less of a balancing challenge, but fundamentally, Star Citizen is a game with PvP available, so the primary determinant of who wins a battle must remain player skill, whether that is group skill or individual skill. When who wins is principally based on who has the best gear, not only is the defeat more frustrating, but also the victory more shallow. If all that is available are small improvements, people will still move heaven and earth to get those small benefits, but superior skill will always prevail. If it no longer does, you will see a big decline from the elite pilots crowd.
You'll see a square layered on the terrain, and that's basically your current selected plot of land. You can grab a face of it, make it a rectangle, make it into a bigger square, and this is you selecting the surface area that you want, and the cost scales up with the surface area.
Now, if you are increasing your size of your claim area, it must be in units of whole plots. In other words, 1 plot by 2 plots, 2 plots by 3 plots, etc., because otherwise you will get all sorts of weird, unusable little slivers and shapes.
If you were to purchase a 1 by 1 kilometer and then another 1 by 1 kilometer, it would actually be more expensive because the cost will take into account the total surface area you own.
Progressive cost will make sense, but to keep it from being exploited, it will also have to be done based on the total land owned by your org members, because otherwise people will skirt the progressive cost by using alt accounts.
Skip this initial UEC cost for purchasing a plot. You just use the beacon and you have your plot of land.
Now, I know that there are other content creators, let's call them Mike, who have complained that the beacon still represents a pay to win because it means that day one you can go out and claim the best, say, copper deposit rather than having to first earn the money. But there are a couple other considerations. First of all, some of the best mining veins are going to be on lawless planets and wildcat mined without any claim system at all. Moreover, if you don't get them day one, they will soon be depleted and you will have the opportunity to get the same quality of copper by finding where the respawn of that high-quality copper vein occurred. On the other hand, the really valuable claims for protected industrial bases on high-sec systems, they have already said that you have to complete the main storyline and become a citizen before those become available to you. So, geotech or not, you aren't going to be claiming them day one. You're going to be racing to complete the story arc day one, and by the time you're done with the story arc, you will likely have the bank account to pay for the claim. It might be nice to have it be prepaid rather than draining your UEC balance, but it isn't that one player blocked and the other player isn't. On the other hand, if you purchased your lot with real money and lose it with inattention, then you should get your geotag credit back. Things paid for with real money have to be respected.
When you have your plot of land, there'll also be an exclusion zone around it where no one else can buy or build, so you can't get boxed in. That is...
I see no reason why there needs to be the exclusion zone. You can't be boxed in because there is no lid on the box. We're going to be flying in and out, so being boxed in might require a particular approach and departure path, but it isn't an actual problem. Now, an interesting but unanswered question is how high do the air defense rights extend above your plot of land? Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond for Ray's Guide.